What's up everyone, Coach Ian Lane here and back at it again. So this video is to follow up on my earlier video on where I identified my team's problems with defending corner kicks and sort of went through the early stages of teaching them how to defend them as individuals. In this video, I'll go over how I taught them to defend as a team, and I'll talk a little bit about the process and of course the results. I'm going to avoid from producing too much redundant content in this video, so if you want to see the full story, I recommend watching these two videos in order. But to pick up where we left off in the last video, the first step I think was identifying that we had a problem with corner kicks, which came as a pretty brutal slap in the face following our first league game where we conceded 3 goals from corner kicks. And not just identifying that it is a problem, but going into more depth and finding out exactly what the problems were. So for me, the biggest problem we had was not occupying the most dangerous zones with our better players. And so at this age level, I'd identify the most dangerous area just within the 6-yard box, right around the goal. So I don't think too many teams are doing rehearsed routines for corners and executing on them consistently. So for me, a very basic first step would just be to defend the area around the goal pretty heavily. So the most logical way I felt to occupy the area right around the goal was to double up on the first post, double up on the second post, and then double up in the middle of the goal. So within our 3-1-3 formation, we have the 2 outside defenders on each post. In this snapshot, the corner's coming in from the left. So the left back is on the front post, the right back is on the far post, and then we have our 3 forwards just about a step in from the 6-yard area and just inside the goal post as well. So that gives us 6 players right around the goal mouth in between the posts. So with our remaining 2 players, there were 2 other concerns I had when defending corners. The center back is there to help us pressure short corners, and additionally, if the opponent tries to play in a ball on the ground or more of a driven cross, or at this age at U10 just takes a really bad corner, he's there to cut that out a little bit early. We also have our center mid right around the PK spot, and that gives us a little bit of depth when defending. So for any rebounds that scored out to that area, for any corners that come in that are crossed a little bit farther away from goal, for anything that happens near the top of the 18, he's there to cut that out. And then also once we clear the corner, he can be the first guy to apply pressure away from our goal, higher up the field. Of course, in soccer, in games, nothing happens in a bubble. Nothing happens with just X's and O's in a diagram. So I had to think about how this would apply to my team on the field as well. So as I sort of hinted at earlier in the video, I didn't want to just defend the corners with just anybody. I wanted to make sure my best players were in the most dangerous zones. So with our team, pretty objectively, I'd say, our best 3 players in our recent games have been our 3 forwards, so our left winger, our right winger, and our center forward. And for a team like ours that's playing more than half their players up a year, they also happen to be 3 of our older players. So by placing them at the real danger zones just inside the 6 and about the width of the goal, I think those are the positions where the most corners, where the most crosses will come in. So I want to have the guys I trust the most to clear those in those zones. In addition to getting my best players in the most dangerous zones defending corners, another element I try and factor in is trying to make sure that the overall team shape still resembles something approaching what it looks like during the course of normal play, so that players in the transition from defending a corner to attacking or to defending higher up the field, they find themselves in familiar zones. So you can sort of imagine if we do clear a ball and we all break out to press as a team again, the wingers will end up about where they need to be. Maybe the striker in the center mid might be reversed for a few seconds, but they'll be able to switch back right away. The outside defenders will be in zones that are pretty familiar to them right away. And the most awkward player we have, really, I think, is the center back, because he's pushed so far out wide to defend the short corner. And the reason I did that, there are some other tweaks I could have made. I could have told the outside back who's defending on that side to pressure each corner. But I think this gives it a lot more consistency. No matter what side the corner is coming from, the outside defenders know they need to protect a post. No matter what side it's coming from, the wingers and the striker know they'll all be across that 6-yard area. No matter what side it's coming from, the center mid will always be right around the PK spot. The center back will always be pressuring the short corner. So that sort of consistency, I think, is very helpful, both in terms of set piece to set piece, as well as from transitioning from defending a set piece into the course of normal play. So as far as training the team to work on defending corners in this sort of system, pretty simple. Just basically set them up in a corner kick scenario with a couple different variations. So right now we're just working on a standard corner kick with the players in position. The player in green is our goalkeeper. The player in yellow is an attacker. Only one is in there for now because the focus is really on getting the players success in this system. And if there's 3, 4, 5 attackers in there, it's really going to disrupt the actual training process, and I won't be able to isolate the things that I want to isolate. So the first rep is coming up, reviewing proper body shape, reviewing where we want to clear the corner, and then one little tweak I like to make sure the players understand is that if we don't clear it the first time, the whole team needs to shrink around the ball and keep attempting to clear the ball. So you'll see here the corner comes in. It takes us a couple attempts. But notice how the players are already shrinking around the ball, and they all move up and press relatively together. Another useful tweak I like to incorporate into training is having the players start as if the corner kick was just given. So you see them all running back into position. And on this example, we're defending a short corner. So as soon as our center back recognized it was going short, he ran over to press right away. After that, it's just about the same as defending a regular corner. We clear it and then all push up together. So you can see here we do have a couple players lagging well behind the rest of the group. So right here I took a sec to explain to them how important it is that we all push up together. If those 2 players lag behind everyone else, their forward can stay onside and would get an easy opportunity to finish in that scenario. So here I'm just taking a quick second to explain to the players on the post, the right and left defender, what their role is. So basically anything they can cover while holding the post with their hand is part of their zone, is part of the area they should be defending. So they're relatively static compared to some of the other players. And I talked about that a little bit in my last video, why I prefer zonal marking over man marking. You get more consistency out of it. Players are always in the same spot. It's also a little bit easier to train, so rather than having each player having to mark a man, I set them in the correct position, teach them the correct body shape, and we're able to play from there. An important aspect to touch upon when you're doing any sort of exercise is always reading the game, is always getting the players to think for themselves. So here I am teaching our center back to recognize that as soon as he sees 2 players head over to take a corner, he should immediately get right in their face and be ready to put pressure on them all the way up until they actually ask for 10 yards. And if they never do, he's in a very good position to win the ball back right away. So as with training any other aspect of the game, I'm a big fan of trying to reverse engineer the outcome you're seeing or want to see in games. So for defending corners, despite the fact that in this video I'm showing all sorts of different scenarios, and actually at that one training session we went over all sorts of different scenarios, it's important to introduce it to the players gradually, not necessarily all at once. So at first, like I said, my big focus point was on teaching them to defend corners individually, so correct body shape, how you clear the ball, and where you clear it. The next step for me was teaching them how to defend as a team. So we only worked on long corners for the first couple sessions and introduced the aspect of shrinking if we couldn't clear it on the first attempt. Then once the players were comfortable with that, because that's what they'll see most in games, then I was able to introduce the short corner concept, which is something that is valuable, something they need to learn, but it's not something they'll encounter in games as much. And that allowed me to really focus in on defending long corners, the things they'll see the most, really allowed me to focus that in and drill that into him as soon as possible and with the greatest depth possible. So for the next couple weeks after we'd actually gotten some time to work on defending corners in training, defending corners was also part of our pregame routine. Just the last 5 minutes or so, going over a couple different scenarios with the starters, so they know as soon as they walk out onto the field, they know exactly where they're supposed to be. So in our very first league game, we conceded 3 goals from corners. And since working on these in training, since working on defending corners as a team in training, we've conceded another 3 goals, but over our last 10 games. So a dramatic improvement. So what that tells me, just going by the numbers, is that I have hit on an adequate solution. That doesn't mean we've achieved perfection. That doesn't mean we need to quit working on defending corners. But now we can really focus in on the execution rather than devising a solution. So to conclude this video, I'll put up a couple different clips of us defending corners in games. I'm going to leave the volume turned all the way up so you guys can sort of hear some of the cues, some of the instructions that I still have to be shouting from the sideline, and you'll be able to hear some of the instructions the players are giving each other as well. Like I mentioned, I don't believe that we've perfected our execution of defending corners, and you'll notice a couple slip-ups, a couple things that don't match up perfectly to my diagrams I displayed earlier. But again, the fact that we're still able to clear them somewhat competently, even though everything doesn't go 100% according to plan, means that the basic ideas that I've given the players are enough at this level to defend corners successfully.
Let's go, guys! Get to your spots! Declan, other post!
Yeah, make sure you stay inside.
Aiden, ready for short! Anthony, you should be, PK spot. Aiden, short! Aiden! Now what? Good, Nico. Keep going, Nico, don't stop.
Good, Jack.
Out, Gio! Now what? Now what?
Go.
Left! Right there.
Get on that.
Go, Aiden!
Here we go again, right in the goal.
Go, boys, out of the air,
Take your time, Keone. Take your time.
Good kick, buddy. Great.
Come on, Keone. Stay outside.
Pick it up. Pick it up.
Chase it, guys! Play, guys, and then push up! On your toes, on your toes! Let's go, Fire, let's go!
Finish it.
You're running.
Now what, now what?
Go, Zach.
Don't let him out. Get home.
Try Nico!
So as you can see, while sometimes the execution does leave something to be desired, it looks a lot like what we worked on in training, and all that is translating very nicely to what's happening to us in games. So thank you so much for everyone that made it this far through the video. If you have any comments or questions or any sort of feedback, feel free to leave it in the comments either on YouTube or on my website, ian-lane.squarespace.com. Thank you so much for watching.